So our second lesson for today involves quadratic word problems. Don't panic because of word problems. Hopefully they won't be too bad. So first example, we have a ball that's thrown into the air. The path of the ball is represented by this equation, h equals negative 16t squared plus 96t plus 200, where h represents the height and t is the time. Part A asks us, what is the height of the ball after 1 second? So the 1 second is in time, right? So 1 second's time. So if t is our time, we're going to take that 1 second and we're going to plug it into the equation for t. So if I do that, I would have h equals negative 16 times 1 squared, because 1's the time, plus 96 times 1 plus 200. So we were given a time, we're plugging that time in for t, and then I'm just using my calculator, and I'm going to type that whole thing in. So negative 16 times 1 squared plus 96 times 1 plus 200. So take a moment and type that in your calculator to figure out the height of the ball after 1 second. $280 is correct. So the height of the ball after 1 second is 280. We want to label that feet. Part B says, what is the maximum height reached by the ball? And then I give you a hint. This is a two-step problem. First, we want to find the time it takes to reach the maximum height, and then we're going to do a plug and chug. So really, if we look up here at this graph that I gave you, t is represented by the x-axis, so our time is here, and then the height is over here. We want to find this ordered pair right here. That's going to tell us the time that it takes to get to the maximum height. So the time it takes to get to the maximum height, really that's just asking you to find the vertex. We've practiced finding the vertex with equations. Now we're just putting it into a word problem and having you do that and then telling us which one represents what. So we need to find the time it takes to get to the max height. That's just negative b divided by 2a. So we're going to our equation. We want the opposite of b. Well, b is currently 96, so I want negative 96. Divided by 2 times a, which is negative 16. Excuse me. Thank you. So 96 divided by negative 96 divided by negative 32 gives us 3. That means at 3 seconds, the ball is at the maximum height. To figure out what that maximum height is, we're going to do another plug and chug. We're going to take that 3 and we're going to plug it in for the time. We know the ball is at the maximum height at 3 seconds. To find the height, we're just going to plug 3 in to find the height at 3 seconds. So negative 16 times 3 squared plus 96 times 3 plus 200. So we found the x value, which is the maximum height, or the time it takes to get to the maximum height. To find that, we just take 3, plug it in for the time. $344 is correct. Then we're just going to label it feet. So the maximum height the ball reaches is 344 feet. So really, we just found the vertex 3,344. 3 seconds is the time it takes to get to the maximum height of 344 feet. We're going to continue this problem on the next slide. Again, we're using that same equation, but for part C, we want to know how long it will take the ball to be at 88 feet. This time, I'm telling you the ball is going to be at 88 feet, which is the height. So when we plug in 88, we're going to plug it in for H. So really, we have 88, our height, equals negative 16t squared plus 96t plus 200. So this time they've changed it up and they gave us the height. Now we have a quadratic. We want to get 0 on one side so we can factor it. So we're going to subtract 88 for both sides. So now I have 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 96t plus 112. Should have pause for a moment. If I would take this and factor it using my asterisks, I'm going to have really large numbers, right? So that top middle number, I would have to take negative 16 times 112. That's going to give me a huge number. I do not want to do that. There is a greatest common factor for this class. It's always going to be this number right here that you're going to divide everything by. So we're going to take and we're going to divide every single term by negative 16. The same thing will happen on your next test. I actually use negative 16 on your test. Divide it by that first number, and that's going to give you a lot smaller numbers to use in your asterisks. But keep in mind, every single term has to get divided by that negative 16. So 0 divided by negative 16, 0. Negative 16t squared divided by negative 16 is just t squared. 96t divided by negative 16 is going to give you negative 6t. And then positive 112 divided by negative 16 is negative 7. Notice these numbers are much, much, much smaller. So now these numbers that we just wrote are what we're going to use in our asterisks. So we now have 1t top left, top right, negative 6 in the bottom middle, and 1 times negative 7 in the top middle. So now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 7 and add to give us negative 6. Negative 7 and positive 1. So my two factors are going to be t minus 7 and t plus 1. Zero product property tells me if I have two sets of parentheses being multiplied together, their product is 0, then one of them must equal 0. So either t minus 7 equals 0 or t plus 1 equals 0. So when I solve both of those, I get 7 seconds and negative 1 seconds. Does it make sense in context of the problem? So we're throwing a ball. Would you tell me that the ball is at a height of 88 feet at 7 seconds? Does that make sense? Yeah. Does telling me that the ball is at a height of 88 feet at negative 1 second make sense? No, we do not measure time negatively. So this is what we call extraneous. It doesn't make sense. You don't talk about time being negative. So we call it extraneous. You didn't do anything wrong mathematically. It just does not make sense in context of the problem. So because this is a word problem, you don't want negative time. So we just mark that answer out. Our only answer for this part is 7 seconds. questions on this part? If you have no questions, flip to the next one and see if you can do part A. So you're given a new equation and you're asked for the height of the diver after 2 seconds. See if you can find the height of the diver after 2 seconds. So here we're just looking at a diver jumping off a diving board. We have a new equation. H is still the height, P is still the time. If you're finding the height after 2 seconds, you're going to take 2 and you're going to plug it in for the time. So you should have typed in negative 16 times 2 squared plus 16 times 2 plus 192. You should get an answer of a height of 160 feet. So at 2 seconds, the diver is at a height of 160 feet. Part B says, how long does it take the diver to reach its maximum height? That's asking you for the X value of your vertex. So remember, the X is going to tell you the time, the Y is going to tell you the height. So we're asked to find the X value of the vertex. That's your negative B divided by 2, what is happening? 2A. So negative B divided by 2A, if I have negative B, I want the opposite of 16, which is negative 16, divided by 2 times A, which is negative 16. So negative 16 divided by negative 32 is 1/2, which for these problems, we're going to want to write as a decimal. And again, that's our time. So in 1/2 of a second, the diver is at his maximum height, or her. So this diver jumps, gets to its max height at 1/2 of a second. To figure out what that maximum height is, we're going to take the 1/2 a second and we're going to plug it in for the time. So negative 16 times 0.5 squared. Yes, ma'am. You're fine. So we just type this in our calculator. Yeah. You didn't get it? Did you put your negative out front for the negative 16? No, you're fine. Oh, no. Did you get it? Must have been that negative, right? No. You drag it and do the parentheses. Yep, so it's really important to put those 2's in parentheses. This one not so much, but this one definitely, because you gotta square the 2 before you multiply by the negatives. I'll pause and let you guys get caught up. Next time, just holler at me so I slow down. I've always said I get really excited and then I just start going really fast because it all flows well in my mind. I've also taught this same lesson 10 times, so it's really easy for me. Go.
many times do you teach it a year?
This class I teach 5 times a year. Well, then like sometimes I have students who do an independent study, so I help them individually. Does that help? Sorry. So just quickly going back through what we've done so far. Part A, the height of the diver after 2 seconds, that's just for plug and chug. They're giving us the time we're plugging it in for t in our equation. Type it in your calculator, make sure you don't miss any negatives, and you get 160 feet. Part B says how long does it take the diver to reach the maximum height? That's asking you for the x-coordinate of your vertex. The time it takes to get to the maximum height, negative b divided by 2a. So negative 16 divided by 2 times negative 16 gets us 1/2 or 0.5. So in half of a second, the diver is at their maximum height. To compute the maximum height for part C, you're going to take the original equation and plug in 0.5 for the time. So plug that in for t. And again, it's another calculator problem, negative 16 times 0.5 squared. Make sure you use your parentheses. Plus 16 times 0.5 plus 192. You did not stop, you squared. So again, watch those negatives or that one negative. You should get a height of 196 feet. So the maximum height this diver reaches is 196. Are we okay on this one? Here. The last one, we want to know how long does it take the diver to reach the water? If the diver's reaching the water, what is their height off the ground? 0. They're touching, in this case, the ground is the water. So we're going to take 0 and plug it in for the height. So 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 16t plus 192. And like I said earlier, if I would put this into my asterisk to factor it, since we already have 0 on one side, you're going to end up with crazy large numbers that we don't want. So to get rid of that, we're going to divide by whatever number is sitting in front of t squared, in this case, negative 16. So every single term all the way across, divided by negative 16. Again, that's just going to make our lives easier. So 0 divided by negative 16 is 0 still. Negative 16t squared divided by negative 16 is just t squared. 16t divided by negative 16 is going to be negative t, or negative 1t. And then 192 divided by negative 16 gives us negative 12. These numbers are much smaller to use in our asterisk to factor sheet. So now we're going to factor using our asterisks. We have 1 top left, top right, negative 1 in the bottom middle, and 1 times negative 12 in the top middle. Now we're on a mission to find 2 numbers that multiply to give us negative 12 and add to give us negative 1. Those two numbers happen to be -4 and +3. -4 times +3 is -12, and -4 plus 3 is -1. So now I have factors t minus 4 times t plus 3 still equals 0. And then the zero product property tells me since these two are multiplied together and it equals 0, then one of them must equal 0. So t minus 4 equals 0, t plus 3 equals 0. Go ahead and solve those both for t. And then remember, t represents time. Do both of these answers make sense? No, you would not tell me it took you -3 seconds to do anything. So our only answer in this case is going to be t equals 4. We're going to put seconds after it, and that is our final answer right here. So the only answer that makes sense for a diver getting to the water would be 4 seconds. So the diver jumps off the diving board, 4 seconds later, that diver is hitting the water.